possibility of good performance depends upon the right amount of concentration that you are putting on to that task. Now all of a sudden there is an attraction of distraction that comes in. What happens then? Yes, my sharing for the day is attraction of distraction. Very important, very vital. We need to understand what distraction is all about. So if I may frame the right meaning of distraction, I find attraction of something which disturbs the right amount of concentration that you're putting during a task, right? So we need to understand how exactly and what effect a distraction does when it comes into the role play. You know what happens? There is ruction, there is resentment, there is agitation, there is a disconnect, and what not. We generally lose out on this, my friends. Now, we come to know about this distraction when it actually has taken place amongst us. It is informed to us when it is settled amongst us. True? Next thing is, why do we need to attract distraction when we know that we'll drift from the right thought process? So if I may frame it, is that a natural process? I find it yes, that's a natural process. So it cannot be stopped. It cannot be eliminated or something like that. But the challenge becomes more complicated when this natural process becomes a habit. Yes, and the habit is just not yours, my friend. I could inculcate it. Anybody X can inculcate it, and the complication becomes more higher when we get distracted by somebody else. Now, it affects the decision making. It affects everything. How do we counter distraction? So I have figured out very lively examples. Two of them are from the corporate world. One is about a speaker, and the third one is about the baby, child. So let me come down quickly to my example segment. So my first example is about a corporate. So suppose I am a presenter of a meeting, and it's a board meeting, so many people are there. So I'm presenting it, a very good presentation which I am addressing, and it is everybody is attracted and looking towards me. All of a sudden there is tack tack. May I come in, sir? I have a fantastic news for you. And the heads turn around, tack. Everybody is at that location where the gentleman had entered, and we are apt into the attention of his. What happened? I also got attracted. Now his information was having something very interesting which was better than mine. So after his episode and his discussion was over, his materialization was done, then people come back to me again and say, yeah, you can start again. As I was the presenter, I got distracted and I said, where was I? I lost the entire crowd at that moment, my friends. I cannot afford to say where was I. You understand? So I figured out how do I counter this distraction. So if any presentation is going on and I am the master of that particular ceremony at that point of time, what do I need to do? Yes, I'll have to get a very humble gesture. If somebody knocks in and comes in, I should be telling him just with a humble gesture, wait for some time. And by that time, I'll compile my first slide or whatever, wherever I am, and I'll take a pause and then ask him to throw his pointers. At that point of time, what would happen? I'll be compiled, I'll be concrete, and I'll be strong enough to come back where I had left from. Coming to my second example from the corporate. Suppose I am a manager. I am into a discussion of something with my friend, who is my colleague, who is my subordinate. So I am discussing something on a sheet which I am about to conclude, and all of a sudden what happens is this phone bell rings. Tring tring. I pick up the call in a hurry and start addressing, yes, Mr. Gentleman X, tell me, how can I help you, sir? And he says, you know, I've been calling your subordinate for quite good some time, and this gentleman has not bothered to come back to me for a good 5 days, and the business, I'm afraid, Mr. Abhishek, I won't be able to take it further with your company. I am astonished, I am just shocked, and I then grill upon myself and I'm about to take care of my subordinate after the call gets over. By the time my superior boss walks into me and says, "Hi Abhishek, I just gave you few days work ago some work, and what about that work?" I again get puzzled. I asked my subordinate, "Yeah, my friend, I had given you some work. What about the status?" Now understand, the entire story is a mix. It's a mixed bag. We were discussing a sheet which has gone for a toss. Now a phone call has come. My boss has standed over me. I do not know exactly what to do in this situation. Then I am bubbled up, I am boiled up, I am going to take care of my subordinate in a very bad fashion. In this part of distraction, what we must do is very important. I must take a break at that very moment. My priority and my planning would be accordingly when I come back. Yes, I'll have to prioritize my work and then plan it. How do I do it? In that case, what would happen if I can control that particular part of distraction? I'll be gaining my subordinate's confidence. I'll be gaining the confidence of my client from whom I received the call. I will be gaining the confidence of my boss as well. As a manager, I must know how to handle the distraction and prioritize as well as plan the work. One more important thing with planning and prioritize, this planning and prioritize is also workable to avoid distractions in a busy house. Yes, my friends, it does work very concretely. Coming down to my third example, that's about a speaker. So suppose I am a good speaker. I have a session today morning, and at the same point of time when I have a session in the morning, I have to draw certain lines. Yes, I have to draw certain lines which will be very important. Drawing lines means I have to control my distraction. I know from which all area it is coming. One of them is mobile phone. So I must, at the beginning of my session, indicate, yes, my friends, if you can just put your mobile phone on silent mode, and the session would be on a right thorough go. And I should keep waiting and give it a pause for a good half a minute so that people can actually adhere to the communication that I have thrown to them. Next is, I need to understand, is that a question answer round? Yes, that's a question answer session that is into the speaking go. So what do I need to do is I need to make them clear. If any questions they want to ask me, what they can do is they can put their questions once I compile the session. Still, my friends, things do get out of control. Area beyond control, area under control. If you go to my Inspiration Thoughts by Abhishek Sengupta, you can see this area beyond control, ABC, and AUC, area under control. Still, some people come down to you and say, okay, I want to ask you a question, Mr. Sengupta, what do I do? And I get distracted. I really do not know how to come back. What do? I just take this glass of water, pause for a moment and take a sip. That would help me to come back on a bouncing note and regain myself with a stronger note. I'll connect from where did I leave. So do take a glass of water with a break. This is a very important part. Coming down to my fourth example, that's about a child. Children are very they get very easily distracted to anything they probably see. So in this case, we'll have to change our module a bit. So how do we change our module? Number one, if there is a distraction, a child gathers. Suppose he was doing some work in a concentration area. He had some concentration and he had to change the concentration and got distracted. In that case, we must address his distraction. When we address his distraction, we will be able to have his concentration back on the work he was doing. So my friends, these are 4 good sharing where I thought I must share with you how to handle distraction. So from now onwards, if you have an attraction of distraction, don't bother. Don't get worried. Just handle it to the optimum. Stay tuned.